To roll?
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen and let her talk about what she's got to talk about primarily.
Okay. So a couple of things I wanted to talk to the group about. I want to talk about the budget cycle they're in right now, 21, fiscal year 21, and just have some conversations with y'all about a couple of the things that are being submitted. Do y'all hear that?
Hold on, it's me.
Okay.
Everybody mute that's not speaking. That'll take care of it.
I got to figure out how.
I wish, hey, Heather, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I don't have the link. The link that I have on that email sends me to the meeting for Tuesday. So,
Susan, can you just listen and I mean, can you still hear us and we can hear you? So we're good, right?
well, I would like to do it on the iPad. I think I could easily do that. You know, because it sends when I. But I mean, if she just sends me the link.
Jesus Christ. Let me find this really quick.
Susan, I'll forward it.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll forward it to you.
I've got it right here. You want me to forward it?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead and forward it to her then.
Okay, I'm forwarding it right now. I forwarded to your city email, Susan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so, all right, so I got some good news to start out. I told y'all last night that it was about a $1.6 million deficit that we had. Found out today that we had something on the TAB fund that had actually been double counted, and so that did save us some money, which is good. So now that deficit is down to about $635,000. So that's some good news. But in that,
Now that's some great news.
That's some great news, exactly. In that number, though, we still don't have the amount for group insurance. So that could be, you know, $500,000 or more based on our recent couple of years that we've had on increases.
Can you repeat what that was? I'm sorry, I missed that.
For the health insurance?
Y'all, who is caller one? That line needs to be muted so that Kristen doesn't get any feedback. Whoever that is, caller number one, please mute your phone.
You told me what it was. It's health insurance. That's all I need, Kristen.
Yeah. Okay. So it could be $500,000. So once that meeting that we have is the week after next with our broker, and so we'll know better then. But we could, you know, if there's a $500,000 increase, we could be back up over $1 million for our deficit. So I just want to kind of put that out there. In addition, that number does not include the proposal that y'all heard for the increase in our retirement, which we had that meeting about the task force prior to all of this happening. And so it would be my recommendation that we go ahead and move forward with that we put out there and, you know, told public safety they're going to get a 3% raise, but we haven't put anything else out there. So I would think that we would want to do those for subsequent years, not fiscal year 21. And but the only thing that would be still task force related would be the 3% public safety raise. And I wanted to get y'all's feedback on, do we still want to do that July 1, or do we want to wait until January 1st to make that, and we can bring that in like we do with our annual merit increases and do everything all at once. That'll give us a couple $100,000 of savings. And I had talked to both Joe and Brian Marcos, and they both feel like, you know, there wouldn't be any pushback from the guys if that was done January 1st, considering the situation we're in currently. But I want to kind of get y'all's thoughts on that as well.
Has that issue been, did we vote on that issue yet, or is it still to be determined?
It's to be determined. So it came to this committee, and then we were going to bring it to the full council for a conversation, but we didn't get there. So because of all this is happening. So for the people on the committee who heard that presentation, I just, you know, wanted to let y'all know that the things that we talked about in the committee are not in this budget with this $635,000 deficit. So.
All right. I'm gonna throw this out there, and everybody may disagree, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree. But I think under the current conditions, it's to be determined. I mean, period. We don't know what's going to happen here in the next month, much less 6 months. So I'd like to see it happen, but I can't find myself committing to that today.
Well, we have to put a budget together for next year, so that's either going to be in it or not in it. Not, you know, so we got to decide, are we going forward with that or are we not? My suggestion would be to go forward with it. I mean, these public safety personnel are not paid as much as those around, you know, from a competitive, the whole reason for this was creating a competitive environment so that we can keep our people, right? So that's not going to change. I know the timing is crazy with what's going on, and I'd be amenable to looking at the July versus, or January versus July, especially if both chiefs have weighed in. But I do think that that's probably something that we need to, I'm going to recommend we keep it in there. I mean, I'm open to discussion, or put it in there.
And it's in there. Currently, the 3% is included in the budget numbers. That's correct, right, Jared?
Yes, currently the 3% is in there for salaries and FICA. We have not yet built in any likely increase on the retirement side. That probably wouldn't amount to a whole lot, but salaries and FICA right now in the budget is in there.
I guess my concern is, and we adopt this budget. What's our schedule for adoption? May?
First week of June. The first meeting in June.
All right. I think between there, I'm fine with leaving it in the budget for now. But I still look at it between now and the first week of June. We should have a much better feel for what's going to happen here.
Okay.
And just make sure I'm clear on this. If it's in there, I mean, it can be amended if the circumstances change and we are not in a posture to do that, right, Kristen? I mean,
yeah, it can.
We set the budget, but
that's what I was going to say. So we can do it like we do, like when we do the merit increases, we put the merit increases in contingency, and we don't put them in the departmental budgets until y'all actually take action on that in December for a January effective date. It's already in the departmental budgets, and I think it's fine to stay there, but I think, you know, the message for communication is, if you do decide January, is that this is, you know, built into the budget effective for January, and the council will take action similar to how they take action on your merit increases in December. And that's, you know, Jared has in there for the whole year. I think it's in there as just as a one line item, right, for 3% on each across the board.
I mean, it's in there for each division. Yes, it's in there as one line item for each division.
So we could, if y'all wanted to do January, we could go in and cut that number in half and then just say, you know, reduced by half, going to be a January effective date instead of July. If y'all are okay with that.
I am.
Okay.
I'm comfortable leaving it in there, but taking into consideration the other items in our budget from the income standpoint, you know, I mean, I want y'all to be very aware of what's going on out there right now. I mean, our hotel motel tax is dropping off this year, and that's probably going to require that we go into reserves even more. We're already, it looks like we're taking $1 million out of the reserves, and you know, we need to be very careful.
Right, and I agree with that. So that's why
I'm very conservative.
no, I am too. So I understand that. And so I think we could just communicate it, that it would be, you know, subject to council approval and, like the merit raises to be effective in January. Speaking of that, so the paramedic increase was also presented to y'all. How do you feel about the paramedic increase for them going from 5% to 7.5%?
You know, almost I think all of these are going to fall in the same category. Corky suggested is we just got to be careful. You know, we can put some of these things into the budget, if not all of them, and, you know, push them back and just evaluate as we go. Because I don't know if we'll know more in June, but I don't even know we really know what our, you know, what the tax base is going to be, right? Property values may adjust. So.
Right.
I would think too that some kind of recognition needs to be given to the fact that we have not laid off anybody, furloughed anybody, done anything to decrease anybody's pay right now, even though they're different situations. You know, this is a different environment than we've ever been in. Not everybody, I mean, teleworking, you know, some people have more to do than others. I would think that there would be some flexibility on the part of the staff, recognizing we've taken care of them through this fully, that they'd be okay with us. And y'all tell me, y'all are staff. I mean, am I right that there's going to be a little bit of understanding on the staff's part that we have to delay some things and think more holistically about what we're doing and timing?
I think so, Derek. I mean, I think, you know, we've been talking to them about this for the last week to 2 weeks, expressing to them about, you know, not making purchases unless, you know, they're really essential. So I think, you know, our staff have been very, very good about understanding this situation that we're currently in. So, and myself and Kristen, we can keep re-emphasizing that to them. But, you know, even with the budget these last couple of weeks, you know, they've understood that some things that they would have ordinarily been buying even right now, because of the environment that we're in, they don't need to make those purchases at this time.
Right. Okay.
Christian, can I ask a question? So do you have and maybe I missed this, but do you get a sense of how our revenue is going to be impacted? And, you know, and if not now, when do you think in the kind of fiscal cycle, we'll have a better sense of what how our revenue will change?
So for our major revenue sources, our biggest is taxes. It's our property taxes. And so, you know, I don't really know what things are going to look like when those are due. And those go out you know, late summer and are due in November. And so I think depending on how long this lasts and what the impact is on, you know, families will determine our collection rate on those. I do think we are going to have, like, we also have large revenues from, like, our business license and the taxes related to, you know, liquor sales. Depending on the restaurants, how they come out of here, there might be some impact on those collections. So, you know, we're going to have delays in getting water paid if we end up, you know, forgiving some water charges that have accumulated. There can be some impact there. I think it just kind of depends, you know, on how long we're doing this and how, you know, big of an impact it is to, you know, everybody in Smyrna. And I don't know that we know that yet. I think we're still trying to wrap our arms around that. So I would think.
But on the property taxes, if the bills go out in late summer, right? So then we'll at least by late summer, well, I guess to do the bills, we got to know what the assessments are, right? So will property assessment change between now and when the bills go out?
Yeah, so I was gonna touch on that as well, related to the budget. So we did hear from the tax commissioner, first part of this week. Got an email from them, and their countywide projection is 5%. We have built into our budget a 7%, because we're typically a few points higher than Cobb County as a whole. And we still have, our collection rate in there that we've had historically. We have historically really good collection rate on our property taxes. And so, we're at 98.5% collection rate. So, that's 25.6 million worth of revenue that's, going to come in. That's half of our general fund revenue. So that's up almost 1.4 million over last year, what we billed. But we were a little bit off on our projection for property taxes for fiscal year 20. So if we maintain the same collection rate, we're going to be about $167,000 short of where we estimated we would be, where we budgeted we were going to be. So that might be too much information, but
so we're 168,000 short this year compared to what we thought we were going to be.
Yeah, right now, if we collect at 99%, which is where we've typically been by the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, not to get into it. So the 1.4 million increase we think for next year, I guess what you're getting at is you're assuming that could be less than 1.4 million. It could be 1.2, 1, or
yeah, it could be less than that. I mean, it just kind of depends. I mean, will we be in a better place in November so that everybody can pay their bills? And or are we going to have a lot of people who are going to, who aren't going to be able to make those payments? And
Yet to be seen. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge unknown for us right now. And unfortunately, we have to adopt a budget, depending on that being our single largest revenue stream.
And I think we can react at, set the budget as conservatively as possible, keeping things in there that we need to keep in there, and taking things out we don't need in there. And then as we go, if the situation, God forbid, lasts longer than the 3 weeks that they think it's going to, and the recovery takes longer, what if something else hits in the fall? This rebounds, comes again. I think we need to be prepared to make amendments to what the original plan was based on the changing environment that we find ourselves in.
Right. Okay, so, all right, so I'm trying to, Jared and I have talked about this, and Tammy and I have talked about this too. So, y'all, if I forget something, just chime in, please. Staffing. Okay, so we provided y'all at the last meeting we had with the positions that have been requested in this budget coming up, and the reclassifications. And we have been having these budget meetings with the departments, and we still have a few more to go. And we have been talking about, these positions like we normally do, vetting them and deciding, asking the questions so we can make a good decision and come to y'all. But I want to get y'all's feel for new positions in this upcoming budget. I mean, in the environment that we're in, do we want to present a budget out there for, and have new positions in it? I have my thoughts, but I want to know what the committee thinks on that, because personnel is, a large cost. Anybody?
I think it's the same. I think it's the same thing. I mean, the reasoning for the positions hasn't changed, right? So theoretically, we still need the positions, based on decisions we made previously, right? But the fiscal standing has changed, and we don't know really how it's changed yet. So, I mean, lack of a better way to say it, we just punt it to push it down the year, right? Make a decision when we got more information.
Mr. Chairman, what are your thoughts?
I guess my initial thought is the reclassifications versus new positions are two different things. And the reclassifications seem to be something that I think are necessary. The positions, maybe we push off until the first of the year if we can. And we should have a much better feel for it by then. But the reclassifications, I think we probably need to move forward with. Just my opinion.
And
Travis?
actually, I was going to clarify that. We've got positions that y'all approved now in this current budget, and then we also have positions that are being submitted for the FY21 budget. So we have two situations to consider.
Kristen, we were down to how many new positions? I know we were at 12 and then we got it down to how many?
I believe it was 4. Let me double check that and make sure I'm right about that.
And one of them was, remind me what those 4 are.
It is a Public Works. It's a capital. It's like the projects, capital projects manager. That might not be the right name of it, but it's the person that oversees projects.
I wouldn't think you'd need that right now with the way things have slowed down.
Right. We had the utility services, the locator, the utilities locator that was going out and marking, as people were trying to get in the right of way, he was marking the utilities. And then we had the new position for Parks and Rec. And then, hold on, let me think of it. You might want to help me on the 4th one, I'm drawing the blank.
IT data analyst.
Yeah, IT data analyst.
I mean, anybody else chime in, but I don't feel like in a crisis environment, any of those are essential right now. I mean, the utility locator, there's still essential services defining, cable companies, phone, I mean, they're still doing all of that kind of work, but not on these bigger projects. I'm not sure those are necessary right now, like they were when there was no crisis and things were operating as normal.
And one of the questions is the project manager. I'd have to ask how much of his time was going to be devoted to Windy Hill. Was he going to be doing inspection work out there versus no?
No, sir. Last time I talked to Frank and Bo, Mark Patrick, the new deputy, was supposed to be handling the oversight for Windy Hill.
Okay, so this guy, the new hire, was not his role then.
No, his role was going to be like work done at the community center or work done out at the Wolf Center or in our buildings. He was going to be the person looking at, those kind of projects.
Okay, I see what you mean. Then, and I'm with Derek. Then, under the current situation, I think it would be better to try to save our money this year and eliminate that role. I mean, if it was a matter of hiring somebody or hiring Croy to come in and do all the inspection, that'd be a different story because
Oh, Corgi, you froze up.
Yep.
So Derek, is the consensus that we're gonna punt for the next fiscal year or hold till January?
I think so these 4 positions we're talking about are for these. I think we punt to January. I'd be open to Kristen's thoughts.
No, I think that's fine. I think in January, I think they're in the budget now. We could, and I know Jared's like, I'm so trying to mess with these positions because we've moved them a ton.
Yeah, but you know what? The reason that we were delayed before was because we couldn't get any answers from people that needed to give answers. Now we're it's a totally, at least Jared, this reasoning is sound that we have an actual health crisis, world pandemic that we're making these decisions based on, not the fact that somebody won't answer the damn.
It's simple enough for me to go in. Those are budgeted at a full year right now. It's easy enough. And those are all vacant, so we can just go in and cut the budgets by half.
Okay, so I'm taking my notes here. So on the positions that y'all approved to start April 1st, we're going to punt on those until January 1st. And then, sometime before then, we'll make a decision on if that's a good hire date to decide if we're going to do them at all next fiscal year.
And that would be reasonable to me.
Okay. But the reclasses we're gonna move forward with.
I-
If that
That's,
makes sense.
that's my
Right.
own thoughts on it, but yes, I would.
Kristen, tell me what the number, what the impact was financially for those 4 positions.
Hold on, I gotta go back to that.
I've got the budget book, Kristen.
Yeah,
I'm sure we all have our budget books right here too. We could all look, but you'll probably get to it faster, Jared.
We
Mine's
have
not
them
in my
sitting on our
car.
desk.
Let me
I
just
thought
try
y'all
to
had
add
that
them up
memorized.
right quick.
Are you adding them? Okay, all right. So while he's adding that, to get y'all that answer, I know y'all don't still have the same handout that we gave you.
I'm just curious what kind of dent that puts in our deficit, you know?
So I think we ought to save around 160,000. Now that part of that is an approximate because part of that is benefits that gets rolled up into a much bigger number when you start talking about group insurance and retirement and all that. So that maybe the real impact in terms of the salaries and benefits will be a little less. But
And Corky, when we're talking, so this is for the current positions we have, and then they've got how many new positions, Kristen, for the next fiscal year?
For the next person, there's 20 full-time and 1 part-time.
I mean, I think we need to take a deep dive and look at that and have the same conversation about, okay, what would be, is there any of those that are needed right now? Or could they be, deferred based on, to January based on the environment so that we can at least know what we're looking at? I mean, I'd welcome any comments, but it seems like the same line of thinking to me.
I would agree 100%.
Yep, ditto.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want me and Tammy and Jared and the departments, we can come back with a proposal. I just didn't know from an optics standpoint, if the first week of June, if y'all wanted to adopt a budget that included any new personnel additions. And I understand what you're saying, some of these might be needed,
I mean, if there's essential positions that are absolutely necessary right now, and y'all decide, look at that list and see if there are. If not, we put them in for January, and then if the situation improves or look where we're at then we can always amend it to defer them to the next, some amount of time after that, right? I mean, I feel like
most of these are adopted usually our positions are adopted with a second quarter start. They're budgeted at 75% of the year. Some of these fire department related are actually budgeted at 25% of the year, so they wouldn't start until April 1st of 2021. So, if we said we're going to make all of them 50% and leave the ones that are 25%, the ones that we vet and say are good, I can't imagine we're going to come back to you and tell you that there's 20 positions that we're recommending for approval, because that would be crazy.
Why don't y'all take a look at it and see, come back to us,
Okay.
say, hey, here's the 24 positions, here's what we think, here's what we think about timing, and then let us make a decision, and then we can always amend that decision later depending on the environment we're in.
Bluntly, I just didn't want to go through that exercise and then y'all say, have you lost your mind? Why are you giving us a budget with new positions in our current environment? So I wanted to make sure we were on the same page before we move forward with that. So, okay. So we'll go through our normal process that we go through with personnel every year and present that to y'all in an upcoming meeting. Okay. Next thing on the list, talking about, budget deficits and everything else. We have always been we've been a huge advocate of, adequate training and travel for our employees, making sure that they're getting, good travel and they have good experience for networking and everything else. in some budgets, that's a significant line item. And so I wanted to also talk to y'all about that. I mean, do we want to continue, along that line? Do we want to make that a little more stringent as far as, if you need that training because of professional development, for licensure or for, certificates or something that you hold that requires that continuing education, that we're going to support it and we're going to kind of trim those budgets in the upcoming year, just try to save some money? Or do we want to stay with our posture that we've had, that, we support training and travel, and we want our employees to go to all kinds of conferences and be representing Smyrna at all these conferences? Travis,
why don't you start on that one?
I think we look to cut that back. I mean, I just sent a message about wondering if GMA will be canceled. I mean, I'm dealing with client conferences out through July and August, and they're peeling off the books pretty quick. I think if it's absolutely necessary for their training, proceed. But my guess is when we emerge from this, we're going to see travel like that halted, even if it's safe to be out and about. We're going to see it down across the board through at least the summer. So I would recommend we maybe trim some of that back in expectation that nobody's going anywhere for a while.
That was kind of our thoughts as well, but we wanted to make sure that we were on the same page with y'all.
Corky, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what has already been paid for and what deposits have been put down and things like that. But I agree, if we have employees, a certain number of employees have to have training for licensure, and they probably need to attend some conferences or something to get that training. But otherwise, if it's unnecessary, I mean, I'd say we try to cut it back if we can.
So why don't we say just essential travel or training that's required to keep up either some certifications, or I know Heather's got probably some things that she's got to do. I don't know other positions, but what if we just scaled that back to essential travel and then had it approved by either me or this committee before anybody does anything? I agree with Corky. There's probably some things that have been paid for, but it's my guess that a lot of those are either going to be canceled or they're going to be flexible with rescheduling and things like that. Based on the experience that I've had in the professional world, I think most folks are understanding of the environment we're in. I don't think it's going to cost us a lot in lost.
I hope we're having a similar conversation to this 2 months from now, and things are on the rebound and really doing much better than we anticipated, and we can loosen this back up. But until that happens, I think we need to be very conservative.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd be curious how much of what training, like with the physicians right now, we're trying to figure out how to afford them as much training online as we possibly can. I guess everybody's watching for any of the classes that are necessity and ongoing training, if it's can be taken and administered online.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot. I think, like, you mentioned Heather. Heather and I spoke earlier today. She's got stuff that she needs for clerks that she's actually going to do online. And so instead of spending, $3,000 for a trip, she's going to spend $500 for, a couple of online classes. I know that mine from a CPA, I can do, online. I actually have a couple of cheap things I found as well that are local. And so instead of going to, statewide conferences or special conferences, I can do those kind of things. And I feel like most people have that flexibility. And I know that there have been conversations about maybe extending those deadlines for people to have their required education in because of all of this. I know they're talking about it on the fire side, because my husband's a fireman, of course, and so I've heard him in those conversations, but they're talking about extending their deadlines as well. So I feel like that's kind of going to be the trend where everybody's going to go. But when budgets were submitted, that wasn't the trend of where people were looking. And so, we've got some large amounts in there in each departmental budget. So we'll work on that and we'll trim those back and kind of get them to be more reasonable, I guess. Okay, next on the list is, in the budget, we have a couple of fee changes that would be beneficial to our budget, but with our current environment, I wanted y'all to weigh in. One is, a sanitation, charge increase. We've talked about this for a couple of years. We've done a little bit of research and kind of compared, and the rate that we are charging for residential sanitation and recycling is it's several dollars less than what everybody else is paying, and it includes recycling. And you know, some places don't include recycling in that number, and so the proposal, and I'm pulling up these notes here to make sure I say this right, but it was going to be a so this says, the notes say $1.75 increase.
It's probably $1.25, Kristen.
Okay, $1.25, okay. So this is saying $1.25 from $21.50 to $22.75
right.
would be the change on, and that's, you know, for a single family.
Kristen, I'd be interested to know what our revenue versus expenses are on that item. You know, I don't expect you to give it to me right now, but I mean, that would be something that would help me. I can make a decision better based on that knowledge, I guess.
You know how well received a fee increase right now would be in this environment?
That's what I kind of thought y'all were going to say, but I wanted to kind of gauge your thoughts, and you know, thinking that this budget takes us through June 30, 2021. So, you know, this is something that y'all want to not think about at all for the whole fiscal year and revisit it in our next fiscal year budget. Is this something that you want to, you know, make?
What's the total impact? What's the total?
$228,000 is the estimate over current revenues. And what's also worth considering is we have a proposal from Public Works to add a fourth recycling route. So that would involve an early replacement of one of our recycling trucks. This coming fiscal year, we would keep in service the old recycling trucks so that the department could move right away to having 4 routes, along with their personnel increase to do that. And then in the following fiscal year, FY22, the department has asked for a new recycling truck to replace the replaced one that they would continue using this year. So there are some significant capital and personnel expenses associated with that request. The department's just saying, hey, look, the demand is growing and we need this extra route. So the fee increase perhaps could be better received if we make it obvious that it's linked to a demand for a fourth recycling route.
You know, the one thing
I don't think any circumstances are going to convince people that we ought to be raising any of their rates, fees, or anything right now while people are hurting like they are.
And the other big thing is, right, so we just stopped collecting some of the major plastics. So, I mean, I think if people are paying attention to that, the amount of recyclability things picked up are a lot substantially less than they used to be. Janet can probably explain that better, but I think the demand's going to drop. So.
So I'm thinking we're going to, y'all's thoughts on that, or we're going to push that off to fiscal year 2022.
Travis, what do you think?
I think we hold it. I think the timing is bad. I don't think we can justify fee increases of any kind at the moment.
I mean, did y'all see what Ackworth tried to do, or that they're meeting on Thursday? It was in the paper. They're trying to give themselves raises right now. I just looked at that. I was like, what in the hell are y'all doing? And I feel like this wouldn't be to that degree, but it would be looked at as, you know, I don't know. It just seems bad. Like Travis said, bad timing.
Okay.
Derek, I don't agree with the timing issue, but I'd still like to know what the income versus expenses are on this item. I mean, if we're losing $300,000-$400,000 a year, that's a different story for me.
We're
I
not
don't know.
losing money.
We're not losing any money. All right. Well, I'll rest my case.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. So the next question was going to be related to street lighting, how we're paying about $700,000 a year for street lights, and considering passing that fee on, but I'm guessing from our previous conversation that that is something y'all want to not pass on. It's it'll be about $680,000 of new revenue. We spend, in 19, it was 747,000 on streetlights. It's budgeted 800,000 in our fiscal year 21 budget. So, I mean, it's a significant expense to the city. It would be a flat rate to the customers, to our residents. It's $1 for multifamily, $3 for single family, and then $6 for commercial. It would generate $800,000 worth of revenue, which would, it would generate $680,000 that would help us offset the $800,000 budget for electricity for those streetlights. So.
That's something I'd certainly not do right now.
Me too.
I agree.
I've kind of figured, so we're going to take both of those off.
But I do think, Kristen, I do think that's creative and something that should be looked at, and was appropriate to be looked at when, a few months ago, our economy's booming and everything's fine. And I think once we get back to that again, I think that's something to look at. But right now, any addition to what anybody's paying, or it's just not. I agree with Corky.
Okay, and that's fine. I think we kind of knew the answer to that before we wanted to ask to make sure that that's how y'all felt about that. Okay. Okay. So we haven't met with engineering yet to talk to them, but the engineering budget in their 2 line items increased significantly in their professional services and their technical services. I guess in some preliminary conversations that I've had with Kevin is that, a lot of these things were council requested, but we have got, I'm looking at my thing here, we've got a $920,000 increase to Kevin's budget for engineering over from last year to this year. So we had a $350,000 budget, and it's gone up to 1.233. So we've had $900,000 increase in his budget. So bluntly, that is a lot of the increase and the deficit that we're trying to cover. So
remind me, what are the highlights of that? What are the big ticket items in that budget increase?
So there is a signal timing optimization, $185,000. There's a signal software conversion, $35,000. Signal warrants, stop signs. It says, the funds to study requests from council and from citizens, that's $30,000. There's a Forest Hills traffic study, $25,000. There's a crosswalk extension at Hawthorne in Atlanta, $195,000. Traffic study for Windy Hill and Old Concord, $15,000. Traffic study for Ward Street near Campbell High, $15,000. So that budget last year was $35,000. It is now, the request is $593,400 for professional services. And then you've got a similar increase on the technical services from $35,000 to $396,000. And trying to see the big
Kristen, do y'all want to send us the comparison from what it was to what is being asked for and let this committee make some, or either that or y'all make some recommendations to us or send it to us and have us ask questions, whatever you think is the best way to do it. But
Well, we don't have
That is-
problems
I
cutting.
know Corky loves studies and wants to fund all of them that he can, but maybe this isn't the right time for this.
Well, yeah, you know it. Derek, one suggestion to that. Kristen, didn't you say you had not met with Kevin yet?
No, we're meeting with him on Tuesday.
All right, I might wait. I might wait till after that meeting and then move forward with that, Derek, if that's okay.
Yeah, maybe he'll, given the current environment, maybe he'll have some things that he would recommend waiting on.
He told us that a lot of these were council requests. So
Well, one of them was the Forest Hills traffic study. He had asked me about that, and I told him we did not need to do that. And that was a couple of weeks ago. So I would think there'd be a few things in there that he could take out.
good. Okay.
Move that
And
one.
then
Kristen, on that front, Tammy, I don't know where that Medlin Road deal is, but we might flag that one as well.
Midland, okay,
That, that whole situation.
yes.
Okay. And then similarly, we had about a $400,000 increase for sidewalks in the public works budget. When we talked to Frank said that he had a couple of council requests that we needed some new sidewalks, and that was put in his operational budget about $400,000. So we suggested.
What requests were those?
Huh?
What requests were those?
I think, let me go back to that budget. Hold on one second.
I had
I
probably
know one was
295,000.
Tim and one was Susan.
Seems like that's a Gould request.
One was a
I think
Gould, one was a
295,000.
Susan.
I was just going to blame
That's-
Ward 1 since they're not on
That's
here.
that's got Gould written all over it.
It does.
Yeah, I think it was Ward 6 and Ward 5, is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
How'd that happen?
You know, Tim, we're not made of money.
Paving the streets with gold.
So, bluntly, those kind of big ticket items would help us be in a much better position budget wise. But I know that y'all wouldn't have requested them if you didn't need them and didn't think that they were necessary. But, wondered if y'all would be in support of, postponing them, scaling them back.
This sounds like a wants versus needs, or maybe somewhere in between.
I agree. There may be some needs in there, but if we can do away with the wants and pull the needs in and let's do them, I think that's the right thing to do.
Okay, that's kind of what we had planned to do, but I just wanted to have the committee support on that. So we'll move forward talking back to Frank and talking to Kevin and trim some of that out and give us a little bit of money back. Okay. Let me look at the notes. Hold on one second. I guess some good news I'll share with y'all because I feel like I've been sharing some bad news.
Thank God.
We do have Joe Bennett, our new chief. When things go back to normal, he has plans to put 3 new officers on the road in his new traffic unit, and he also has a DUI task force that he is ready to assemble and get those guys on the road. I spoke to him yesterday afternoon, and he's thinking that we could, add somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 to the budget on those. But that's also a timing thing. That's on an annual basis. It depends on when things go back to normal and if people are really out and about. And that's a wild guess. He feels confident in that number. Our annual amount for everything that we've done is 1.1 million. And so, having a 50% increase over that, I think is great for, budget wise, but I'm, I'm a little hesitant to think that we're gonna, have that much revenue with those new traffic units, but it's a potential. It could happen.
I would be very conservative with that number in the budget.
I was thinking the same thing. I was going to go with just a smaller increase than $500,000.
Does that include, you said traffic enforcement, the 3 officers in the DUI task force, does that include, I know there's 3 or 4 intersections that have had extremely much higher accidents and things. I know there's one on East-West Connector. I know there's the red light cameras that we are going to do through that we may do through Red Speed. Does it include any of that?
It does not. He said that we had started testing those intersections right before everything kind of shut down. And so that study wasn't able to be completed. And,
Okay.
once things go back to normal, we'll be able to do that. But we don't have any data for that or for the school zone cameras, because
Well, hell, we don't even know we don't know what's going to happen with that. We were ready to take the district's ability away to have to sign off on those things, and then the session ended, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so there's that. Let's see. Another thing that just want to put out there, and I know that Richard will probably want to talk to y'all about, is the way that we have our youth sports associations contributing to the city now. They are not, according to Richard, they are not in any way covering much of their costs at all. And he feels like we're subsidizing each of these leagues, $40,000 to $60,000 annually. And I think he told us in our meeting with him that the split between residents and non-residents is like, 60-40, with the 60 being non-resident. I think that's what he said. So most of the people who are playing in Smyrna Little League and Smyrna Soccer are not even city of Smyrna residents, and the city.
Hey, let me just interrupt you. And before we had all this shit hit the fan with this virus, I met with Smyrna Soccer, I met with Smyrna Little League, and I met with some of the other groups, and there are differing opinions about how those relationships are going with the city. And so I was kind of in the middle of getting those groups side of things, and then getting Richard's side of things, and then putting it all together. And I hadn't quite got to Richard yet before this all happened. I would suggest not making any changes right now until we've had a chance. There's some problems with the relationships between these groups and the city, and I don't know what I'm trying to get down to the bottom of what exactly is going on there, and how we can fix it. But the last thing I want to do is change the way any kind of funding is going on, or any kind of payments are going on right now, while we're trying to improve those relationships and figure that out. So just background that y'all might not have known, trying to work on that right before all this happened.
We haven't incorporated anything into the budget for those, but I know that, he mentioned it again on our call earlier this week. So I was just kind of giving y'all a heads up on that.
And he has not proposed anything this year either.
Yeah.
It's been something, I think he proposed it in prior years, but proposed it for this year, knowing probably the timing is not quite right for that to be discussed again.
Yeah, he said
that'll give us more time to figure out exactly what that relationship is and what the issue is, because these people that run these organizations aren't too thrilled with how the city's handling it, and he's not too thrilled with how they're handling it. So I want to figure out what the deal is and get it all straightened out before we start talking about any money.
Okay, sounds good. I was just going to kind of give y'all a heads up. So I know we've been talking for a long time, so there'll be more information about the budget going forward. I think our big questions that we had got answered. I did want to briefly make sure we were on the same page, because I've got to give the departments a heads up. Tammy and I do today, because payroll is going to be done on Tuesday. And we had planned to pay our part-time employees again for this 2-week period that ends on Sunday, the same thing that they had been paid for the previous pay period. We have not advised them that there would be anything any different. And, you know, now that, like I said, the pay period ends on Sunday, I think the right thing to do is to go ahead and pay them the same thing they got paid for the last payroll, which would have been the hours that they were scheduled for and they were supposed to work. So it would be their normal amount. But just also wanted to, you know, I've had 2 questions today come in asking, you know, what we were going to do moving forward. Derek and I talked about this earlier this week, and, you know, and I know we talked about, Carol talked about the CARES Act and about, you know, people about, you know, subject to unemployment and everything else. And so I had told Tammy I was going to bring it up in this meeting as well to, you know, have everybody kind of weigh in on that and give direction to those departments as we move forward through these extended closures. For ballpark figure for part-time employees, like I said last night, it's you know, about $60,000 a month that we're paying them in salaries and FICA.
I'll just comment and then open it up. I think that you're right. You can't tell them on Friday that they're not going to get, you know, that they're not going to get paid Sunday. And I think there's been other, didn't y'all get with department heads, Tammy, Kristen, to kind of get creative on, look, we could do some, and I understand this doesn't work for everybody, but that there are some administrative things that can be done that for Parks and Rec or Public Works or library or whatever. There are some things that can be done that kind of had been put on the shelf or nobody got around to it because there wasn't time, or if we alternated shifts or alternated whatever, we could get some of these things done, whether it's flooring at the Wolf Center in the locker rooms or something, you know, whatever it is, that they could still be working to a degree and have tasks that justify their pay. I know that's not the case with everybody, but generally, and the last thing I want to do is I want to try to take care of all the people. You know, I don't want to not take care of them. I don't know how long this is going to last, but if it's 1 more month and we can, or 2 more months and we can figure out things for them to do that are productive, then I'd sure not like to cut anybody, you know? And
I have some information about that is we also have full-time people who are at home getting paid to do nothing. So we had also talked with the departments about, you know, is there some stuff that those full-time people could do to, you know, earn their pay? Because if we bring the part-time people back and pay them, you know, say we're paying you for doing something, we have full-time people who are getting pay and benefits and they're not doing anything at home to be blunt. So we're trying to figure out the best balance of that to, you know, maintain our social distancing requirements and not have people in the offices, but also to, you know, make sure that we're maintaining, you know, fairness to the employees and, you know, approaching that the right way. So, but even if they come and work reduced hours, we're still committed to paying them their full amount that they were making before this happened.
Well, I'll tell you what other cities are doing. Nobody's cut anybody to my knowledge, and they've got alternating work schedules and different things. I mean, we've got everybody at home now, but, you know, if we can figure out, if the department heads and Tammy, if y'all can work and figure out ways that people can come in and do some different things, as long as they're not putting themselves or each other at risk, then, you know, let's get creative on how to do that.
I think that's fine. That's the message I'll communicate.
Y'all, other thoughts? Yeah. Corky, Tim, Travis? I mean, I just hate to cut any, knowing that this is going to be some period of time and is going to end, that hopefully it's not going to be a long period of time. I mean, we furlough people or let them go, and then, I don't know. I'm just don't want to do that.
I like the idea of just being creative and thinking about what else can we do, and, you know, what other roles can we fill. I mean, you know, crazy this sounds, right? Can we make surgical masks? You know, I mean, like, you know, I mean, that's a goofy idea, but anything that's even outside our normal, I mean, volunteer activities, things like that. But we don't want to put people at risk, of course, right? But anyway. I'm open to creative
Right.
thinking and
I mean, we're reaching out. We got 5 or 6 people that are reaching out to all of our businesses here, phone calls. I mean, they could add to that. There's a lot of things that we can do from a service perspective to our residents and our businesses that maybe, I'm just asking y'all, get creative and let's see how we can
Right.
use their time wisely in the time where they don't have their normal responsibilities to do.
I'd agree with you, Derek.
And I'll be
I hate
working
to put
with
it
them
already out
to
right now.
come up with. I'm sorry, I was talking to somebody at the same time. I said I can get with the department heads and try to come up with some creative ways. They did discuss some things when we met on last week, so I'll circle back with them.
And Corky, I think you got cut off. What did you say?
I'm sorry, Corky.
I think
Corky, you're on
was right.
mute.
While we're
Thought he
waiting
said he agreed. Go ahead.
I agree. Some, I guess, logistical questions. What happens when when people are calling one of our city numbers? Are they forwarding through to people? Like, do we have a live human answering
Tina.
as many numbers as possible?
Tina's answering almost 100 calls a day right now.
If they call the switchboard, Tina's doing it, but like in finance, my phone is ringing to my city cell phone, and then in finance we have alternating people working on days, and so like Mike and Claire alternate, so their phones are forwarded to each other, so one of them's in the office answering phone calls, and when they're not going to be there, they're supposed to forward their phone to me for me to answer the phone calls. So I think a lot of departments have done that so that they can receive the calls, and they've all been, my staff at least, in finance and downstairs in water admin, have been asked to check their voicemails pretty regularly throughout the day to make sure that they're not having voicemails accumulate and that someone gets back in touch with them. So I think that's been the norm for most departments.
Okay. I know, I think Derek said it, and I've heard sort of the theme. Look into our department heads to think of all those things that we've pushed aside because we don't have time when things are in the normal posture. Look for things that, time to catch up. That's what I'm doing with my folks to keep everybody in a good posture as we move through this, and let's get caught up. And when we get caught up with stuff, then we'll figure out some other things outside the box. But I absolutely think we gotta take care of these people because we're gonna need them when we come through the other side.
That's kind of what I thought. That's kind of the page we were all on. But being y'all the committee, I just wanted to let y'all know that we were going to do that. Make sure y'all were all in agreement, and kind of let you know what the financial impact would be. So that is actually one of our lower costing things. That $60,000 for a month's worth of part-time labor is not it's not huge. It is a big amount when you're not getting any revenue in, but it's not in the scheme of things, it's not a huge amount. So I'll respond to the calls I've got today, and try to send something out to all those departments that to go in and enter the hours into this payroll and to communicate with those part-time employees that we're going to be creative and that they can continue to count on the check from Smyrna. So we'll take care of that. And I think that's all I had on my notes. I know that was a lot. It was about an hour, so I didn't know if there's anything else that y'all wanted to address. Any questions?
No, appreciate all y'all have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks a lot, Kristen.
You're welcome. Give Jared a big thank you too, because he's been a rock star through all this.
Well, we should have just thanked Jared.
Hey now, it's a team effort. We're both doing stuff, Corky.
Okay.
Kristen, Jared, you feel better? Got some direction?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And our pennies.
I will say, Kristen, points off because we've yet to see this puppy we've heard about.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Do you want to see her? Hold on a second. I will show you her.
We need a little bit of cheer.
Yes. Hold on one second.
Alston looks really excited to see the puppy too.
I had to pick her up too, take her nap. Okay, you want to see everybody on the street? You know, see her?
Yeah.
Yes, she's, well,
She's little.
Good.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, are we adjourned?
We adjourn.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
All right, thanks, guys.
thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Sorry, baby.